on Friday, July 11th, in front of a sold-out crowd at Madison Square Garden, and live on Netflix. It's a historic all-woman card featuring Amanda Serrano and Katie Taylor, but there will be many other championship fights, including, of course, the WBA bantamweight champion Cherneka Sugar Neekz Johnson, who will have an opportunity to become the undisputed champion, and she joins us live here today at Donnybrook West Island Boxing Gym to talk about the Rival podcast, that fight, and much more. Neekz, how are you?
Matt, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. Montreal's been great to me so far. I've been finishing up camp here, so really exciting to meet the rest of the Rival family and to be here on the podcast.
When you hear those words, would you have an opportunity, Undisputed, Netflix, Madison Square Garden, how does that make you feel?
I still get butterflies in my tummy every time that I think about, this is my opportunity, this is my time to become the undisputed world champion. So it's sort of a dream come true to be not only fighting on an all-women's card, Madison Square Garden, Katie Taylor, Amanda Serrano trilogy. It's it's like like a pinch me moment.
There's going to be some questions here that I probably already know the answer, of course, but I look forward to hearing some of the other ones, including if we start with, now you're going to chance to fight for the Undisputed next week, but let's go back all the way to the beginning. What got you into boxing in the first place?
So the first time I entered a boxing gym was I went to a local YMCA gym for a box fit class. I wanted to get fit. I was about 12 years old, went to the gym with my dad, and we had a little bit of a bonding moment, and went to the boxing gym, and from there it sort of just grew. Like the trainer there, Philip Holiday at the time, he had his own boxing gym. It's like, well, she's got a little bit of a natural talent in her, we should bring her down to the gym, and it eventuated from there. Did
you see or have a lot of women fighters or role models back then when you first entered the gym?
I was not even interested in boxing at all at that point. I just thought, I'll go just do a little bit of fitness, and from there it's sort of, I was going to the gym 3 times a week, then it became 4 times a week. It was like every day that I went, and then it was like, I want to get in the ring.
How long did that take, the process where you first had sparring or competing in an actual amateur fight?
I can't remember the first sparring session that I had, but I do know I had my first fight, amateur fight, against Skye Nicholson about 6 months into my...
Wait, your first ever amateur fight was against Skye Nicholson?
Yes, yeah.
That's pretty crazy.
Yep, and I think I was boxing for like 6 months at the time.
How'd that result go?
I didn't get the win.
Okay.
Skye had been around for a long time at that time, but I was just like, even though that I lost that fight, I was still hungry for more. Like I was like, I want to do better. I want to be better.
And you and Skye still have a friendship to this day, no?
We do, yes, yeah. We were actually besties. We travelled the world together representing Australia on the Australian team. We were roommates quite often, so yeah, we have a really good relationship.
So when in the process of you competing in the amateur ranks, did you feel like, maybe I can actually get to a higher level here, that I could even potentially be, more than just doing this occasionally, but this could be a career of mine?
I think when, I started representing for Australia, I really enjoyed traveling with the team. I was on the shadow squad for the Olympic Games back in 2020, I think it was. Unfortunate with the weight divisions then. I couldn't make the division 51. I was too small for 60, and I thought, I might give the pro ranks a crack, and I actually really enjoyed it a lot more than the amateurs.
Being the biggest difference, it was more violent in the amateur fight? Is that what it is?
No, I think it was just the more flexibility of not having to weigh in every day. When I was
right.
When I was competing in the amateurs, I was on the scales all the time, and that's what sort of disheartened me. Like I wasn't enjoying my life. I was too worried about the scales. And then coming into the pros, like you have a set date, you know when you have to make weight, you've got time to refuel properly, right. And yeah.
That's great. Do you think sometimes it takes away from maybe a boxer's ability because of these weight classes, always having to potentially cut yourself or drain yourself? What's your stance on how much weight should a fighter cut to compete in a certain weight class?
I'm fortunate enough to be working with, some of the best in the business, and I've listened to my body. I've been making weight for a long time, and in the amateurs, I didn't have much knowledge or guidance around making weight properly, and I wasn't doing it properly. I was starving myself, I wasn't eating, I wasn't drinking, and therefore I wasn't able to perform. So now that I've got the knowledge, I'm a big bantamweight, and that's because I can do it properly.
And that's the decision why eventually you moved down in weight as well, thinking you could do it in a way that was also safe and you could still feel your strength.
Yeah, 100%. You know, I'm training well fueled. I get back in the ring well fueled. Majority of the time, I'm the bigger fighter in there, and we've got it down pat.
Now, when you look at some of the moments in your pro career thus far, what stands out as some of your favorite moments in your pro career?
My favorite moment, definitely one of my my last fight with Nina. You know, having that convincing win when there was so much controversy on the first one. Even though I didn't feel like it was controversy, it was more so that everyone else and her team, and just to prove and show, okay, I am the champ. You know, we had a dominating win, 7th round stoppage, so that was the proudest moment for me.
And up until then, you had already at the past, won a world title, but having kind of that rematch convincing win was, even though it's fresh, it's not long ago, right? It's only been a few months. That still remains your favorite moment thus far in your career.
I'd have to say so, yes, because I was able to demonstrate a lot more of what skill set I have and the fighter that I can be, and I'm still only growing from here. I felt like I didn't even get to showcase all of what I have to offer. So to be able to show that, to give a stoppage and a world title defense, that's a great memory for me to have.
It also demonstrated a little bit of that sweet savage that we know Sugar Neekz is the nickname that most people know you by, but you also have Sweet Savage. Where did that come from?
I think that sort of just come about, I feel like my personality and me as a person outside of the ring, I'm quite sweet, generous, kind. People don't really pick that I'm a fighter, and then, when it comes to fighting in the ring, you have to be a savage, and that's like a little switch thing for me. Okay, time to turn it on now.
Did you know early on that you had power, had the ability also to fight an aggressive offensive style?
I believe so. Yeah, I feel like I can be a little bit more aggressive myself. Like, if somebody hits me hard, I want to hit you hard back.
So sometimes you want to fight even more than you want to use your boxing.
Yes.
That's right. So how does that go also over with your trainer, Craig Wilson?
I'm always getting told, ease back. But no, we've learned to work with each other really well. I think he's finding my strength and my weaknesses, and we're working on the two together to build on my weaknesses and I guess keep growing on my strengths.
You're saying you feel like you're still progressing and still even obtaining better levels.
Yeah, every day. Like every camp, every fight that we've had, I feel like since Craig and I started working together, I've showed progression in each fight.
What do we think we're going to see out of you on the Netflix Undisputed Bantamweight Championship fight against Cherneka Metcalf?
I'm not going to give away too much, but all I'm going to say is I'm going to be taking home all those belts.
One thing that was funny is that you had talked about eventually wanting to fight Undisputed even before this opportunity came about, which came about a little bit as a replacement fight for Dina. You and Cherneka had a little bit of back and forth. I remember after your win against Nina Hughes on Instagram and social media, you didn't respond much, but she wanted to fight you. Said, hey, if the opportunity comes and it makes sense. So how about now that you were thinking of maybe seeing her for the first time face to face? What are those kind of emotions like, knowing that you talked about eventually fighting her, but now you're fighting not only for a world unification fight, but for the undisputed one? For
me, I'm a true professional, and even myself, I said after I'd won my WBA, defended the bout, I said I'd either like Cherneka or Dina because they had another bout, and I want to prove that I'm the best, and I have to fight the other best champions to be the best and collect all the belts. So, she called me out as well, and I said, look, if the money's right, then yeah, let's do it. Then it come about that Dina and Cherneka were fighting, and then everything sort of just fell into place, and here we are. Cherneka and I are fighting for the Undisputed World Championship.
What's your stance on trash talking versus, or at least just the conversation, the energy of up until an opponent? Have you had the same type of energy in an opponent that Cherneka Metcalf is going to bring in your fight?
To be honest, I don't personally know what Cherneka is going to bring, but I expect, she loves, you can see on the socials that she loves to talk. She's quite chatty. She backs herself, and as you should as a fighter, you should back yourself 100%. I haven't had that as of yet. You know, all my opponents have been quite professional, quite respectful to one another. So, yeah, I feel like I'm a respectful fighter, and I respect my opponents. But you know, when you get in that ring, it's time to fight. We're not friends. we're there to fight. You have something that I want, and I'm going to take it.
How do you go about not just preparing for a fight technically with your trainer, but everything that goes around? You talked already a little bit about working with some of the best for the nutrition side of it, but I think you have part of people of your team who try to make sure that you're prepared along the way, not just from a stylistic point of view, but from a mental point of view, from an energy point of view. Or what do you feel it takes to be an elite fighter at this level?
You know what, like, I do everything to the best of my ability. I make sure I've got the best people around me, and I know now that I've got the best team around me that I could have. And you can see that, like, you know, we were fortunate enough to be able to bring my healer over. Russ, she works in mind, body and soul. You know, we do a lot of energy work, we do a lot of mindfulness, we sit, you know, I feel like the fight is won mentally before you even get to the ring. You have to be confident in yourself. You have to know yourself. Like, you have to truly believe that you are a champion. And we've done that. You know, we've worked so hard in I guess the behind the scenes stuff that a lot of people don't really get to see. Just mentally preparing, sitting with yourself. It's a mental game, a lot of it. So I'm very grateful for the team around me, the people that I have. We're going to see good things.
I've been privileged to see the last year how that preparation goes, and I think one aspect that people think sometimes to be an elite fighter, you can be very talented and get away with it, but the discipline aspect of how much you sacrifice, if you will, from what other people your age are doing in everyday life to become the best. I don't know if that's something you think is necessary or something just necessary for you, but you definitely live an extremely disciplined lifestyle to get to the point where you're at.
Yeah, you know, I feel like my life at the moment, my life is boxing. I want to be the best. I want to showcase that I'm the best. I want to be a good role model. I'm always fit. I'm always healthy. You know, I'm somewhat always in the gym. I'm always mindful of what is next. What is the end goal? Where do I want to be? And I feel like all those 1% of things, they all add up over time. Consistency, determine, you know, then there may be a setback, but how hard do you work to get back to where you want to be?
What were some of those setbacks in your pro career, would you say, up until this point? Did you change anything to make sure you would get to be the level where you're at now?
Well, you know, there was the loss against Ali Scottney over in the UK. I've been with a few different trainers now, and I think just doing what is best for me and how I feel, you know, like I've had some good people around me to bring me to where I am today, but I think it's important to do what is best for you, and I did that. I was like, okay, this doesn't feel right for me, this doesn't work good for me, or I feel like I'm not progressing here. It's time to take the next step and move forward.
Do you think there's too much emphasis on an undefeated record at times in boxing in the pro ranks versus you can lose and still come back even stronger, even more popular?
Yeah, 100%. You know, everyone's chasing that undefeated record or trying to dodge fights to have easier fights and, you know, keep their own. But I feel like, how are you going to get better if you're not fighting better opponents?
Right, absolutely. And one of the other debates that we hear about in boxing, of course, is that emphasis on the undefeated record, but also the 2 versus 3 minute rounds is another one in women's boxing. How do you feel about the 2 versus 3 minute round debate?
I'm sort of indecisive on this one, like, because all I've ever really known is the 2 minute rounds. I feel like they would look. I'd be open to giving the 3 minute rounds a go, but I don't have a big opinion on that one.
And there's also a lot of action in the 2 minute rounds, right? That's one of the aspects. And I know you try to keep a high volume of punches. So what would you say is your greatest strength in there when you get to your abilities as a fighter? What do you feel is your greatest strength?
Like you said, you know, I've got a high work rate. I get back into the ring, the bigger fighter. I think it's just more exciting when it is the 2 minutes, because you do have to work. You don't have the time to sit and pick your punches. You have to really work.
That's a great point. And also not only work, but you throw a little bit of power in there as well, as we'll hopefully see on July 11th. How much of feedback have you been getting from people knowing that you're now part of MVP, you're part of the Netflix card, you're fighting for Undisputed? Has it been a lot to deal with, or as fighters in general, is that sometimes a little bit much to deal with all the attention that comes with these high-profile fights?
It's been really cool to see the amount of support from everyone. I feel like I haven't just been, what would you say, like gifted the opportunity. I felt like I've worked for this opportunity and to be in this position to fight on such a big card and join the MVP family. So it's been really cool to see the support and for all the other women on the card that have joined MVP. They're doing great things for women's boxing. It's going to be incredible next few years ahead, I think.
You were there as a fan for the Katie Taylor, Amanda Serrano, or at least a supporter of women's boxing, right? When that second fight happened, now you're going to be actually fighting on the third card. So that's a pretty crazy turnaround as well.
Yes, it was. I think everything happens for a reason, and the stars have aligned.
Well, let's look at some of the other questions that some of the fans are asking while I have you here, Neekz, about some of the maybe behind-the-scenes stuff they don't know much about, including your music ritual in the locker room, dressing room before a fight. I got to witness it firsthand in March. Can you tell us a little bit about what's your selection for playlists and why that's important?
Well, we actually have been through this last camp. We've been working on a pre-fight playlist. It's very mellow, very chill. We got no real anything too crazy. Bit of slow jams, R&B, reggae. It's very chill vibes out the back.
And that's going to continue even the night of the fight, right?
Even the night of the fight, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Who's the biggest supporter, you would say, or some of your biggest supporters outside of the ring?
Outside of the ring, my family has been my biggest support ever since I started. I wouldn't be here without my mum and dad just supporting me 100%. My partner at home, he looks after the dogs and deals with all the moods, and I've got some really good close friends. I've got a small circle, but it's a quality circle, and I'm so thankful for them.
The dogs are Instagram famous, aren't they?
Maybe, yeah, I'd say so.
But you showed them a lot on Instagram,
Yeah.
right? Wait, there's Daisy
and Bruce.
Bruce, that's right.
Daisy and Bruce.
And they get along well.
They get along very well. I do miss them, but
part of the sacrifices of camp, right?
Yes, that's it.
What's your cheat meal or your favorite meal after a fight or after a weigh-in?
After a weigh-in, it's still very strict. The job isn't done until after the fight. So, after the fight, we're going. My Instagram feed at the moment is just all food, watching food. I'm like, want to go here, I want to go here, I want to go here. But I feel like it's going to be definitely a cheesy pasta, which is probably going to give me crook guts, to be honest.
But didn't I see you have ice cream before this previous fight?
Yes. So I was actually surprised too. First time working with Geordie from the Fight Dietitian, and when he's like, you can have ice cream the night before weigh-in, I was like, what? Are you for real? And it was a hit, it was on. So I wasn't really missing out on too much of those sweet cravings come fight week.
Well, good. Makes sense. Well, you'll be able to enjoy some, hopefully, after the fight, especially. Some other questions here from the fans. What's your favorite activity or some of your favorite activities outside of training or fighting?
Outside of training or fighting, I love going to the beach and sunbathing. My backyard is the beach. I'm always down there. And if it's not that, I actually don't mind being in the kitchen, cooking food, trying to cook new things.
Really?
I'm a little bit of a homebody. I love my space. I love my routine. So.
You're also a biker, though.
Yes, true. That's very true.
That's pretty amazing.
I do like going out for a ride on the bike.
Was that always something you enjoyed, or is it recently that you picked it up?
It's always something I've enjoyed. Younger, I was a little bit of a tomboy, going out on dirt bikes and things like that. So I was always I remember this one picture. I seen this nice Harley Davidson. So one day I'm going to have my own, and now I do. So, yeah.
Well, and hopefully you get to enjoy some ride when you get back, of course, to
definitely.
Australia. Well, let's talk a little bit about Rival, if you don't mind, a little bit of a shameless plug. How long have you been training with Rival equipment, and maybe some of your favorite gloves that you use?
I've been with Rival for a good, I'd just say probably 6 years now. By far the best quality training gears, training products that I've had, and just the people and the team. I'm honoured to be a part of the Rival family. They've always looked after me and been back working closely with the Rival family back in Australia. bad gloves, I have no hand injuries whatsoever. Never had any, and touch wood, we don't.
Absolutely. We're going to hope that continues as well. Of course, you have the fight gloves custom way that I hope people are going to be able to tune in and see, because you got some cool designs coming out
Very
for this
cool
July 11th
designs.
big fight.
Yes.
If you look at the next generation of women fighters, now that you're going to have this opportunity on this big Netflix card, what would you say is, you see more and more, I find, amateur women fighters in the gym? What are some words of wisdom or encouragement that you could maybe tell them if they were in the gym with you?
I think it'll be definitely, you have to, there's ups and downs, and when you have those down times, just remember there's always going to be better days to come, and it's always going to get better, and just stick with it. If you really want it, you can get it, Nothing is out of reach in women's boxing these days, or just in life in general. If you work hard for it, you're going to get it.
What was your reaction when you got the Jake Paul FaceTime call?
Oh, that was pretty special. It was like, am I actually really talking to Jake Paul? And yeah, to have him, reach out and be like, hey, look, do you want this fight? I was like, sign me up. Yes, I do.
It's pretty crazy, because a few years ago, I think people thought that Jake Paul would actually be serious about progressing women's boxing, or some of the other MVP fighters as well. And he seems to really be all in on it,
He definitely is all in. Look what he's doing. Like, look at the card that they're presenting July 11th. A lot of people talk bad about him, but I can't say anything bad about him. He's providing the platform, he's looking after women, and he's just showcasing how good women can be.
I have a few fun little questions to end this, Neekz. Hidden talent outside of boxing? Like, if you had to go to a talent show, what are you doing?
It's not very much of a hidden talent, but I am quite good with my sense of direction. Like, if I drive somewhere once, I'll know where to get there with it.
So even with the bike, sometimes you can just go
Yes.
and don't need to...
I'm pretty good with sense of direction. But other than talents, like, I can't juggle, so that I can't be doing that as a talent.
Yeah.
I can't sing.
And you can't do magic tricks like Russ Anberg,
No,
who's part of the team.
gee whiz.
No.
Yeah, he blew my socks off with his tricks.
Is Russ the funniest person on the team, or who would you say is the funniest person on the team? It's definitely not me.
Who's the funniest
I don't think
person
it's
on the
Craig,
team?
maybe, or Stuart, maybe, I don't know.
No, to be honest, we're all very mellow. Like, I probably would have to say Russ is funny because he gets, like, his cranky little Russ going on, and it makes me laugh because it's like, oh, bless.
Yeah, of course. And that's one thing with Russ, though. If you gave him, I think, a cookout after your last fight,
Yes.
like you and even Roz was part of the Jamaican cookout, that he's very happy with.
Soul feast. So yeah, we had to treat Russ to a little soul feast.
We had a little bit of a glove controversy at the glove selection in the last fight. I remember a little bit there with
yeah.
Matchroom at the time and Frank Smith. So yeah, our friend Russ, of course, always funny and sometimes cranky as well. Maybe just an ending. How do you feel about potentially hearing the words Undisputed World Champion in the rest of your career leading up to July 11th?
I can already see it. I can already feel it. So, come July 11th, I already feel like I know what the emotions are going to be. You just have to step into it now.
Do you visualize part of the preparation?
Every night, I have a visualization track that's been tailored for me for July 11th. So I listen to that every night and go through the whole night, how it's going to play out, and I can just see it all already.
It's going to be an amazing show, an amazing event. Madison Square Garden, Netflix, Friday, July 11th. Your undisputed championship fight in the bantamweight division against Cherneka Metcalf, Amanda Serrano, Katie Taylor. Once again, in the main event, you're going to have Jessica Camara, who's from this gym, fighting Chantel Cameron. Shavannah Marshall's part of the event, Alyssa Bumgarner. The list goes on and on. We can't wait to be there and see it live in close person and people tuning in on Netflix. Neekz, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.